until we call on you. And then Dawn at 6, we're ready to start.
Longest minute.
All right, I'm going to let the public in.
Are we ready?
Okay, Chad, did you want to make the announcement about Director Morgan before we call to order?
Yes, I just wanted to note and mention that Director Morgan thankfully is here tonight and participating in the meeting. She just recently had eye surgery, so she is not able to be in a position to use her camera. So she won't be on camera, but she will be on audio and will be able to participate fully in the meeting.
Okay. And then to the members of the public, once it's time for public comment on the items, we'll go ahead and unmute your screens for you. Okay, Dawn, President Morrow, whenever you're ready to call.
All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Ironhouse Sanitary District Board of Directors for June 16th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Okay, we have Director Morgan.
Here.
Director Scheer.
Here.
Director Zirkle.
Here.
Vice President Luritsen.
Here.
President Morrow.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, item 1B. Chad, can you lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
Yes, and as you can see, I've got a flag conveniently behind me. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. President Morrow, you're muted.
Sorry. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion. Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Pete.
All right, I'll make a motion. We approve the agenda.
I'll second it, Director Lordson.
Thank you. And can we have a roll call vote?
Okay, Director Morgan.
Approve.
Director Scheer.
Approve.
Director Zirkle.
Aye.
Vice President Luritsen.
Aye.
President Morrow.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, item 3 is public comments. Do we have any comments or questions from the public at this time?
No problem. Yeah.
For the members of the public that are currently joined to the meeting, we're going to go down the list in an orderly fashion. I'll assist you with unmuting your audio configuration so you have time to speak on any topics that you wish to speak on.
If
Okay,
I could say one thing first of all as well, is that we have not started the public hearing yet. So the purpose of these public comments are for members of the public that are interested to make comment on items not on the agenda. If you have a comment specific to the public hearing, you certainly can talk about that, make that comment now, but you'll have a forum to do that when the public hearing is open.
Okay, do we have any public comment on the actual agenda and or any members that would like to speak? Okay, we'll go on and go to the next item, and then we'll open public comment on that item once the public hearing starts and the president announces it. Go, Will you please unmute President Morrow?
All right. So let's move on to item 4, consideration of sewer service charge rates for fiscal years 2021 through 2024 and 25. Item 4A, hold a hearing on sewer service charges for fiscal years 2020-21 to 2024-25. Consider protests and cost of service study on sewer service charge rates for fiscal years 2021 through 2024 and 25. And item 4B, consider adopting ordinance number 71, amending ordinance number 25, setting the sewer service charges specified therein for fiscal years 2020, 21 through 2024, 25. General Manager Davidson, can you give us a
Yes,
presentation?
let me introduce the item, and then I think that after that, you may want to open it up for public comment, and then based on that, we can certainly respond and answer questions that the board has or members of the public have. But first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to bring this item before the board. This is an item that is looking at adopting, staff is recommending the adoption of a rate structure that addresses cost of service equity among user classes, as well as includes a rate increase that allows the district to fund capital improvement projects over the next 5 years within the sewer collection pipeline system and also at the water recycling facility. I'd like to give just a sort of a brief chronology of where and background if I could. The last rate study that the district conducted was in 2006, and the new rates were approved after a Prop 218 hearing that occurred in 2007. That rate structure was in effect for many years, with the last increase happening in June of 2015, which set the rates to the current $658 per year that are currently charged per EDU. An EDU is an equivalent dwelling unit, and that's the measure of, or the unit of measure for wastewater service. So one of the things that's come up that there's been a lot of questions about is that currently our ordinance does not differentiate an EDU, whether it is for a single family resident, a multifamily residence, which would be an apartment complex, or a mobile home within a mobile home park. So for example, a single family residence pays $658 per single family resident. A multifamily apartment, for example, that has 10 units, each apartment pays $658. So the annual sewer service fee for that particular building or parcel would be 658 times the number of apartment units. So if there were 10, it would be 658 times 10. And the same is true for mobile homes within a mobile home park. So one of the things that we looked at as part of this, in order to ensure that our sewer service fees were equitable and defensible, is we conducted what's called a cost of service analysis, which is where we looked at the impacts of each of the different user classes. So single family homes, multifamily apartments, mobile home parks, as well as commercial and industrial facilities. And we wanted to ensure that the amount that each of those types of users were paying was appropriate based on the level of service and the cost of service being provided. And so therefore, in the first year of the proposed sewer structure that's before you tonight, there is both an equity or cost of service adjustment per user class, as well as a proposed increase, which would bring additional revenue into the district, allowing us to conduct and fund the necessary capital improvement projects. So what, and we can talk a little bit more if you want about what came out of that cost of service analysis, but what came out of that very briefly was that because the district had been charging apartments and mobile homes per unit the same as a single family dwelling, when the analysis was performed and we looked at what the actual wet weather water consumption data was for each of those user classes, it was determined that the district needed to adjust the amount of wastewater associated with multifamily and mobile homes, as well as single family, that they weren't all equal among user classes. And therefore, in order to fix that and in order to have a legally defensible sewer service fee where one user class is not subsidizing another user class, the rate structure took that into consideration. And again, I'm happy to answer any more questions about that. A little bit further on, the district, since sending out the Prop 218 notice, has also since 2015, since the last actual increase was imposed, the district has completed a collection system risk model. And what that risk model does is it allows the district, through the use of CCTV video inspection of the sewer system, it allows the district to identify where we need to invest based on the risk of a failure that could cause a sewage overflow, as well as the consequence of that. So if you have two sections of pipe that are both in equally poor condition, but one is in front of a school and the other is out in the middle of nowhere, then the one in front of the school would have a higher priority. So that allows us to get the maximum value and manage the likelihood of failure with the consequence of failure as effectively as we can. In 2017, the district also hired a consultant to do a reliability study at the water recycling facility. That reliability study identified over the next 5, 10, and 20 years the improvements that need to be made in order to ensure that that facility is operating 24/7 without disruption, and it can ensure that the wastewater is being treated to a level that allows the district to meet our permit requirements and protect the environment and the public. Those two items needed to be completed before the district performed a rate study, which was conducted in 2019 at the direction of the board. And the reason for that is that it was both of those efforts, the collection system risk model and the water recycling facility reliability study, that identified what the capital improvement requirements were. So without knowing that, there's no way that the district could have reasonably or equitably increased sewer fees until that work was done. Now, once we knew what needed to be done, what capital improvements needed to be made, what the timeline for those improvements was, and what the cost for those improvements was, we were able to plug that into a rate structure that would allow us to identify what additional revenue the district needed in order to fund those projects while still complying with our reserve policy amounts, so that we could stay fiscally healthy. So at the August 15th, 2017 board meeting, the board directed staff to study the reliability of the water recycling facility. In October of 2018, the board directed staff to complete a comprehensive sewer rate study that looked at current rates and the revenues needed to fund the required sewer collection system and plant improvements. In November of 2019, the board considered a rate study and capacity fee and directed staff to proceed with the legally required Prop 218 noticing process. On April 7th, the board directed staff to proceed with the noticing of the district's customers based on the fact that there was, I'm sorry, on May 11th, the board held a special meeting based on the unprecedented COVID-19 public health crisis and looked at alternatives to the timing and the proposed amount of the increase based on this unprecedented situation that was unexpected. And after information was provided by staff and there was alternatives were evaluated, any alternatives that deviated from the prior direction of the board would have ended up in the necessity for an ultimately larger rate increase. And for that reason, the board directed staff to proceed with their prior direction, which was the noticing for what was being proposed. So on May 1st, the notice was sent out. On May 14th, the staff prepared a frequently asked questions sheet that was posted on our homepage of our website that broke down a lot of more detailed information based on a lot of questions that we got from the public. One of the challenges that we had with the Prop 218 notice is that that is a legally required notification, and there is certain information that has to be on there. And so there was a lot of information that was legally required to be put on there, but ultimately needed additional clarification for the community. So that was why we were able to put together a separate frequently asked question sheet that was on our website in an effort to be as responsive to the questions of the community as we could. On June 9th, I participated in a podcast, and that went for about an hour, and much of that hour was talking about the specifics of the rate structure of the capital needs, the basis for the cost of service equity adjustments that are being proposed, and some of the challenges that were due to the unexpected nature of the timing with the coronavirus public health crisis, and just basically the rationale of the district and why staff believes that moving forward with this is in the best interest of both the district and the community from a cost perspective. So that provides a little bit of background. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have before you take testimony from the public that are in attendance. I do want to acknowledge that this is certainly a challenging time for proposing a rate increase. There certainly are a lot of questions and a lot of concerns still on the part of many of the members of the community related to the cost of service analysis. So I'm happy to provide any specific information. We also have here the representatives from the consulting firm that the district used to conduct this rate study. This was not a study that was performed in-house. This was a study that the district used an outside consultant using best practices to help us come up with the most defensible and appropriate and fair rate increase that provided the minimum amount of revenue and the minimum amount of increase needed to fund the capital projects.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Chad. This is a culmination of a lot of work, a lot of hours from you and staff. You guys have done a great job of keeping us informed and attempting to keep the public informed and getting the information out there as we know it, as we get it. The consultants also have been extremely helpful in helping us through this. And I just want to reiterate that we did as a board go back and look at how we, what we could do once this COVID-19 thing, the pandemic hit. We did consider it. We didn't just, go on with business as it was. We did go back and visit it, and it was going to be quite a bit of difference in the amount of money. And so we voted as ratepayers ourselves to keep it where we were. And so are there any other board members that would like to ask questions or have comments? Director Lauritsen?
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of comments and maybe a couple of questions for Chad, our General Manager. And I want to thank the public. I sympathize with all of you that we're having to do this virtually. It's strange to all of us, believe me. I wish that we were in our board chambers and we could see you face to face. I apologize for that, but the circumstances are what they are. A couple of comments. I've been on the board since 2004. And Chad, you mentioned that the last real study that we did was 2006. So we've gone for 14 years without a rate study. In that 14 years, we've built a new wastewater recycling facility. And other than that recycling facility, we have no debt. We have one long-term debt, and we have about 8 years left to pay on that. And we paid $2.9 million approximately a year in October. Is that correct?
That's correct. Roughly $3 million a year is the debt service.
And so The proposed infrastructure improvements that we want to do, they're on our wish list. Those are all pay as we go, that we're not going to borrow any money, that we have some restricted reserve funds now, but we need some more funds. And that 9% increase that's proposed for 2021, that increase, that delta would go into the restricted reserve funds to help pay for these improvements. Is that correct?
That is correct. What is being proposed is what was determined to be the least costly way to perform these improvements in the most equitable way. And to go out and borrow money to do that would end up having a much more significant cost to the ratepayers in the long run. So the amount of revenue identified to fund these projects is specifically what was needed to fund these projects. There's no none of this proposed new revenue is going to offset operations or staff costs or things like that. This is all specifically related to capital improvement projects in a pay-as-you-go method so that it could be the most cost-effective way of doing it.
Madam President, I have no other comments at this time. I'd like to hear the comments from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board members? Director Morgan?
Sorry, I'm slow on the unmute. I have no comments at this time and look forward to hearing the comments from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Scheer?
I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Director Zirkle?
My only comment would to be along the lines of Director Lawrenson, and that is thank you to the staff for the exceptional job of following through with what the board has requested with the rate studies and everything involved in this. And I think that it's going to be a very positive outcome for the future for both our plant and all of our ratepayers. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. All right, we will now open the public hearing. As stated in the agenda, comments received through email and voicemail will be read into the record with a maximum allowance of 3 minutes per individual comment, subject to the board president's discretion. Let's see here. Have we received any comments or questions from the public, Cecilia?
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to refresh the page and then I'll read any comments. Okay, so we have a comment from Barbara and Richard Santos. The proposed increase in sewer fees, specifically the fees for single-family residential, are intolerable on many levels. If ISD does need to increase rates, the increases must be equitable and across the board. Who does your math? The fees will increase a staggering 29% for the single-family residential category the first year alone, but the oddly formatted graph of information you distributed to homeowners leads them to expect only a 9% increase. This is at best confusing and more likely downright deceitful. ISD is proposing a huge hit of nearly $200 a year, more than homeowners currently pay, and it will start in November with little time to adjust our budgets. Why did ISD decide to lower rates for most other categories? A reasonable person would have to assume it was under pressure from entities with lobbyists and PR people. Let's just have homeowners pay for this necessary increase. Let's lower the rate for everyone else. Where do the homeowners stand in line to get kicked in the butt by ISD? Perhaps ISD and its well-compensated employees can afford a $189.33 to $276 increase, but most folks on fixed incomes or median paying jobs will suffer. A $20 a month increase could be the straw that will make their homes unaffordable. Forcing this grossly unfair increase on only the single family residential classification could result in foreclosed homes in the short term and decreased home values for all Oakley residents in the longer term. I am not being over dramatic about this. Instituting or even considering imposing this unfair rate increase on the backs of hardworking folks, many of them out of work during this COVID-19 situation, will be an unmitigated disaster for many Oakley homeowners and ultimately ISD. And the next comment is from Marjorie DeFrumry. Dear Board of Directors, I feel your rate increase is outrageous, 28%. Your quote of 9% is very misleading to say the least. You are raising residential properties and lowering mobile home and commercial. Where is the fairness in this decision? The sewer charges should be paid equally for all, as we have been paying throughout the years in Oakley. I have lived in Oakley all my life and never saw such injustice as the above from any other Ironhouse Board of Directors over the years. We have several rentals in the Oakley district, and with the coronavirus plus people out of work, this certainly would be a hardship. And then I believe that is all of the comments. Colin, did you see any other comments on there besides those two?
I do not see any other comments. Are we ready to go through the list of the people that have joined the call and see if they have any spoken comments they'd like to provide?
Should I ask if anyone listening would like to submit a comment via email or voicemail? Please do so now. It won't be read into the record, but it will be in the minutes, correct?
It'll be, if it's received, it'll be, I'm sorry, Leah, would you please respond to that?
Yes, if anyone in the public wants to submit a comment, they can do so. And at the end of hearing oral comments from the folks who are participating in the meeting, if we've received the comment by then, it will be read into the record after we have received all of those oral comments. And then the board will deliberate after we close the hearing, after we've received all comments. If comments are received after the board has deliberated and made a decision, they will become a part of the record of this meeting, but they will not be read into the record live the way that Ms. Goff did with the comments that we've received so far.
Thank you.
So with that, we should then just move on to seeing who here has comments they'd like to make.
Alrighty.
Okay, Colin, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed.
For members of the public that are dialed in currently to review this meeting, we'll be going down the list of participants in an orderly fashion. I'm going to assist you with unmuting your audio so you can make a public comment at this time. We'll give you about a 10-second period in which we make contact with you to make sure that we can hear you and audio configuration is correct. At that time, you'll have about 3 minutes to speak on the matter. We're going to start with Angela's iPhone. Angela, I'm going to unmute you now.
Thank you.
Angela, you're welcome. You have 3 minutes.
I actually submitted comments in writing today using the email that was on the Proposition 218 notice. Are you saying that it wasn't received? I did send it before the 5 p.m. deadline today.
It was received, but that's considered a written protest, and those protests won't be read into the meeting per our legal counsel.
Okay, so how will my comments be shown to the Board of Directors, or how will that be taken into consideration tonight? Have they received a copy of that?
This is the emails and the response to the Proposition 218 notice was a request for individuals to make to protest the rate increase. If you made a protest, that protest will be considered as part of the total number of protests made. The public hearing is the opportunity for you to make public comment. If you would like to resend that comment now as a public comment as opposed to as a protest, then we will read it into the record at the conclusion of hearing oral comments. Or if you would like to read that into the record now, then you can do that as well.
Okay, well, could you actually go to someone else, because I have to get on my email. I have to open it up. I don't have it in front of me, and I know that my 3 minutes is ticking.
No, that's fine. We'll come back to you at the end of hearing the rest of the oral comments, and then you can read your comment into the record then.
Thank you very much.
Before we move on, Leah, do we need for members of the public to state the property owner's name and the property address prior to their comment if they want to make a protest, or can they just comment? without that information.
So the members of the public are clear. You have two options, well, really three. You can make a comment, which is simply something you want the board to consider when it evaluates its decision whether to adopt the ordinance. You can make a protest, which is simply indicating that you protest the rate increase without any other commentary. If you want to have your protest considered, then you will need to disclose your name and your property address, as those are the legal requirements for a protest. Or you can do both. You can make a protest by providing your name and property address, and then provide whatever comment you would like the board to consider when it evaluates the rate increase that's under consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Barbara's PC. Barbara, I'm going to unmute you now.
Okay.
Barbara.
To Angela's comments, it was very difficult to figure out how to give you my letter that you did read. I originally sent it to your email address, which I'm understanding now that would have just been a protest. And then I found another place to upload my letter. It was very confusing. I work with Zoom all the time. I work with the computer all the time. The very people this is going to affect, the older folks who are on fixed incomes, there's no way they would have known how to upload any kind of a protest. Thank you.
Moving on to Brianna Ellison. I'm going to unmute you now.
Hello?
Brianna,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Hi, okay, so I would like to do both. My name is Brianna Ellison, and I live at 907 Almaden Circle in Oakley. As well as for my grandma, like the lady previously spoke, she has no access to Zoom. She would never know how to submit a protest. Her name is Eileen Bist, and she lives at 1105 Deer Park Road in Oakley. And she called me in tears today because she is so worried that at 78 years old on a fixed income, she does not know how she's going to pay for the increase. And as a single income stay-at-home mom in my house, this is just, I can't even explain to you how upsetting it is at the amount you want to increase and just the single family homes. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm protesting, and that is my comment, and I'm done.
Thank you, Brianna. Moving on to Gigi Jester. I'm unmuting you now, Gigi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Okay. Yes, it's Gigi Jester. I'm at 104 Cresta Blanca Court. And I just don't understand how it can possibly be fair at all that multifamily units, the apartments, are going down 56%, where we're going up 18%. And it actually, with a 9% increase, is 27%, and it just continues to go up from there for the next 2 years. And the two people, like my husband and I, live on a fixed income in a single family home. We don't use more sewage than the people across the street in the apartments that there's two people there living there. I mean, this just is not comparable at all. I just don't understand how you guys came to this conclusion that this is at all fair on the single family homes. We're basically going to be subsidizing these people that are not, I mean, it actually went down. They have a credit for their allocation, and it makes no sense. And I think the timing of this is terrible, and I think it hasn't been fair. I already know of 4 people who have sent in emails, and none of them have been read, and I don't understand that. And I just think that it's just not a fair way to do this. We can't even have a fair meeting or even a vote. Nothing even came to vote on this. So anyway, that's what I have to say, and I'm protesting.
Thank you, Gigi. We are moving on to Jeff Miller. I'm going to unmute you now.
I missed
Jeff.
the blog, but if my understanding is correct, your numbers are based upon water consumption, and a single family home is irrigating yards and other things that you're not treating at the treatment plant. Whereas an apartment complex, each apartment is consuming water strictly for their bathroom needs, and the apartment owner or management is paying the water consumption. So that splits it off to being a separate category. So I figured that's where your deviated math comes from. But beside the point, you know, we're back to the issue. No matter what you call capital improvements, it looks like 75% of your budget is payroll, pensions, and healthcare. And just like all the other public entities in this area, I'm sure most of this is going to actually end up going that direction. And the reality of this is people talking about complaining, considering that the city of Oakley, 48,000 some odd people, typically gets a voter turnout of 2,400 people. They pretty well get what they vote for, and something to consider at the next election. And that's really all my comments are on this, because I don't figure we're going to actually change anything.
Thank you, Jeff. Joe Kovalik, I'm going to unmute you now. Joe, are you there? Joe Kovalik, can you hear me?
Hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I had to put my headset on. I'm opposed to the rate increase, and I do wish you would stop saying it's 9%. It's actually 29% for single-family residential, and it's very troubling to see documents and comments from the management team that say it's 9% when for 88% of the people in the district, it's going up 29% the first year, and will be almost a 50% increase in our rates over 5 years. So very troubling to me, and I strongly oppose it. And I echo the comments that other people have already made. I thought they were excellent comments in opposition to this rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Jordan Taylor, I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Jordan Taylor. I am actually a consultant with NBS that helped put together this rate study, so I have no comments on the study further.
What's your point?
Thank you, Jordan. Rob L.
Hi, you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what everybody else is saying here. I got zero notification that you would change this to a Zoom meeting. This is ridiculous. You guys are acting totally unprofessional. And I totally agree with what everybody is saying about single family homes should not be bearing the burden of this. And I haven't heard one bit of logic from you guys as to why that is. Are you planning on addressing that and explaining why you're raising it so much on single family homes, why you wouldn't do that on apartments and everybody share the burden? I'd really like to hear it. That's all I got. I'd also like to know how this affects condo owners. Are those considered to be single family homes, or is that a multiple? Anybody got an answer?
Well, here, I'd like to get just a point of clarification. There are a few things that I think have come up regarding some of the comments that we've had, and I think that they warrant answers, but I've just sort of been documenting, and then I was assuming that once all the public comments were done, then I would go through and provide clarification on some of those points, unless the board or legal counsel believes that I should do it in a different way.
No, let's complete the public comments. allow everybody that is here that wants to speak, and then you should address any of the technical questions that have been asked, and then it will be, then the board can deliberate or address whatever comments they want as well.
I'd like to please make sure that you, when you finally end up answering some questions here, whether condos are considered multifamily, as in a 100-unit condo development, gee, are those single-family homes? Or are those considered to be like apartments? We have no idea.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lisa, I'm going to unmute you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Hi, my name is Lisa Roses, and I was born and raised in Oakley. My parents came in 1940. We've been here ever since. And it just makes me really sad because I want to retire here like my sisters. There's 16 of us, brothers and sisters, believe it or not, along with, there's 5 generations that we have here. And my goal, my plan was to retire here in Oakley and live happily ever after. But with all these increase and everything that I'm having to endure here, and I'm, entering into my retirement, I don't have this money, and Oakley never was, I don't know what the word to use. It just makes me sad to see what I love the improvements that you guys have done and everybody's done things, but what happened to caring about us? It's always, there's always a problem. There's always a reason for more money, more money. I don't know where you guys expect us to get this. Oakley is a poor community. We don't have a lot of money here. And I just think it's sad that you're draining us. And I don't want to leave here. But if I have to, I'm going to have to sell my home and move to somewhere where I can be more affordable to live. So with that said, I just really hope you guys take it all into consideration that a lot of us here are on set incomes and we have no more money. And I don't know where you guys expect us to get it from and live comfortably, especially the seniors. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Mike Bacon, I'm going to unmute you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mike.
I oppose this myself. I am a single father of 2 teenage daughters. I live at 4557 Alder Drive, and I am on a fixed income, and I am with everybody else on this. It's like, we as single family homes, are being punished. I feel this should be fair. I just don't understand all this. I myself am a new homeowner of 3 years here in Oakley, after 35 years in Antioch. So we pay an outrageous amount in property taxes, and I just oppose this. This should be fair for everybody. I don't have any more to say. I don't understand all this stuff, but I don't know where everybody's going to come up with all the money, for this. So hopefully there can be some kind of compromise, or this can all be worked out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Peter Canepa, I'm going to unmute you now.
This is so weird. I've never.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. My name is Peter Canepa. I'm the president. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Peter Canepa. I'm the president of Eagle City. We are a family corporation. We've owned it since 1962. And I've been an advocate of this rate decrease for mobile homes for many years, and I brought it up over the years. The average resident in Eagle City, the house is about 800 square feet. Some of them are up to 1,000. And a lot of them are singles. And we're a single resident. And we just don't produce that much sewer. That one resident can't produce that much sewer in that small of a house. It's a 55 and older mobile home park. So I just want to say thank you for acknowledging that Eagle City is going to appreciate what you're doing, and it is more fair for us considering we're not living on a 5,000 square foot lot and a 3,000 square foot house, that kind of thing. These lots are, the houses I said are 800 square feet, maybe up to 1,400 square feet, and the lots are 2,000. So again, thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Peter. Scott, I'm going to unmute you now. Scott, if you are there, you should have received a prompt to unmute your phone. Okay, we will circle back around, Scott. Caller at last 3 digits, 333.
Hello?
Are you? Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. This is Ron Greer and his wife Tammy. We are at 4886 Carrington Drive in Oakley, and we are protesting the rate increase. I used to work for a public municipality, and I'm still having a hard time coming to terms with the numbers for the increase that you're coming up with for the single family home basis the cost that you're reducing for multiple families and mobile homes. I don't see how a single family home can produce more effluent than the same number of people living in a mobile home or an apartment complex. And so I don't think that we are should be burdened with that cost. Also, you're saying here that you are using all this money for public improvements and capital projects. If that's so, then why are you burdening the single family residences with the majority of the costs for that, rather the entire community and developers that are here? And that's about all we have to say. I also do not believe that you have met the intent of the public hearing required for this because of the lack of notification that we had that this was even going to be a Zoom. We drove to the facility and there was nobody there. We drove home, we got on the computer, we tried to figure this out. Our computer isn't even got sound on it, so I had to call in on my phone in order to be able to hear the meeting going on. So I really think that you have not met the intent that you are supposed to for this public meeting, and that you need to hold another one and make sure that you get public notice out that if you're going to do a Zoom conference, every resident in Oakley needs to be aware of that more than just a few hours before the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller at last 3 numbers, 045. I'm unmuting you now. Zero 4-5. Are you there?
Yeah, this is Roy Lopez. And
Perfect. Thank you, Roy.
I got in on this a little bit late from a neighbor, but again, I just kind of feel like everybody else does. You know, it's like, you know, it should be equal and fair, you know, and not, you know, just single family homes, you know. And But again, I just live here all my life, and I seen Oakley. I wish it never became Oakley, to be serious, because I seen it from all my life, and I've been here 54 years. But that's so sad that we have to see this, because a lot of people don't even know about it. I know my mom don't know about it, and she's on a fixed income, so I'm going to be calling my sister and letting her know that her rates are going to go way up. So that's going to definitely affect her. So we are protesting, not very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller at 069. Unmuting you now. Zero 6-9. Are you there?
Yeah, this is Sue Higgins.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank you.
we can hear you.
So I'm Vice Mayor in Oakley, and I just want to comment. Can I get some clarification when you go over them? Is the single family home going to be a 29% increase or a 9% increase? And you're doing capital improvements, and I appreciate all the hard work and the improvements you will make. Do they all have to be made at once? And could we spread this out somehow and do things in increments and help us out a little bit? I'm confused, and I want to get there and understand more. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I see we have a participant on Galaxy Tab S5E with no audio at this particular time. So I'm going to move back up the list. I believe our first caller was Angela. Angela, I'm going to unmute you now.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I just want to acknowledge Cecilia, who's the board secretary. I agree with, I think it was Barbara who said the 218 notice was very difficult to understand. I didn't know where to send a protest letter, but I emailed Cecilia and she got back to me very promptly and very informative. So thank you, Cecilia. I will thank the staff for Ironhouse. I think they work very hard for us, and I don't take that for granted. And the third thing I'll say is that I do agree with someone else who said it was difficult to find out about this Zoom meeting. It wasn't on your Ironhouse website, excuse me, the Facebook page. I found out about it on someone else's Facebook page, and then I did go to the website. So I just want to put that out there. So this is the letter that I sent today. I said, hi, I'm the owner of a residential Oakley property on Geranium Drive, and this communication is a protest letter regarding both the proposed new sewer rate structure and the increase in sewer fees. The sewer rate increase is not 9% as stated for single family residential, but in fact 42% over 3 years, $658 to $934. The first year alone is 28%, increasing from $658 to $847. This new rate structure unfairly penalizes single family homeowners who may have no more occupants than multi-family residential or mobile home park residents. Single family residences will be paying $934, while multi-family residents will be paying $350.88. Residents should pay equal to what they're using and not be subsidizing other residents. Did you use data from Diablo Water or another source to ascertain just how much water actually goes into single family homes using the same wet weather data used in the rate study to determine the percentage of single family homes who have the same EDU capacity as mobile homes and multi-family homes? Just because I have several toilets in my house doesn't mean that I'm sending you any more wastewater to the treatment plant than a multi-family residence or a mobile home park residence. Why the assumption that all single family homes use more wastewater services than those other two categories? Also, no rate increases in the last 5 years. That's really difficult, and it should not be used to justify this big increase now. I'm curious why you didn't do perhaps even like a 2% or a 3% in year 2 or 3, just to get us through the various rating surveys and the things that you were working with the consultants on. The Proposition 218 says it's a 5-year rate increase when in fact the rate increase is for the first 3 years and then there's none for the next 2. What is the justification for calling this a 5-year increase? I've never written a protest letter to any public agency
There's
before
30 seconds left on the clock.
and believe I need to speak up at tonight's meeting and send my comments in advance via mail. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. We will come back to Scott. Scott, I've sent you a request to unmute. Scott, if you can hear me, you will have received a request to unmute your iPhone. Okay, still no response from Scott. Going to move to Galaxy Tab S5E.
I don't know how that. Which one is? Oh shit! Damn it.
Hello, this is the Greers again. We already discussed earlier, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Looks like we've got Gigi Jester on the phone as well.
Okay. Gigi?
Yes? Yes, hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Could you hear what I said? I have two people that I put their names on in the beginning of the call with mine to get in queues to talk, and they haven't been called yet.
Which, can you give us the name of the first speaker, Gigi? Are you there, Gigi?
Yes, Colleen Masadas. Are you hearing me?
Colleen Masadas.
Yes.
Okay, I do not see her on the participants list. Is she with you?
Well, I put her. Yes, she's with me, and I put her in, and also Daniel Jester on the same computer at the same time I did mine.
So just to clarify, Ms. Jester, both of these individuals will be speaking from the same place you're speaking from, so they don't have a separate device showing up on the Zoom call. Is that accurate?
Right.
Okay, that's
Yes.
fine. So why don't we just go ahead and each one of them can, we'll have 3 minutes to comment as well. Just state your name and address so that, so we can, if you're going to register a protest.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my name is Colleen Masadas, 94 Cresta Blanca Court in Oakley, California. I'm a single-family residence owner in the Vintage Parkway area, and I feel your new proposed rate schedule is erroneous and unfair to me and many others in this new classification. Just because a person owns a home doesn't mean they produce more sewage than any other classifications. It's really the number of people living in the home or unit and what their wastewater is that dictates this estimate. I'm all for everyone paying their fair share, but it makes no sense to me how our household of 3 could produce more sewage than a 2-bedroom apartment holding 3 people, or a double-wide trailer holding elder couple, or a restaurant who's doing dishes, cooking, and allowing customers to use the facility. Your study indicated that 1 EDU is based on a single-family home generating 256 gallons per day of domestic wastewater. My water bill for May showed a daily water consumption of 144 gallons, far below your 256 standard. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting your study correctly, as I'm not an accountant, but it appears to me that your wastewater capacity fee study is really saying you need 25 million in capital improvements for all the new development taking place, projected at 200 new connections per year for the next 20 years. And that is the cost to buy into ISD's existing infrastructure. So future customers connecting to the facility would enter as equal participants alongside current customers regarding their financial commitment and obligations to the facility. If that's the case, then why are current customers being asked to subsidize the developer's fair share of costs for new expansion? We are currently paying on the 2012 wastewater plant upgrade loan balance of 41 million, so I assume we're paying our fair share for improvements. Your study also mentioned that the district wished to comply with certain legal requirements on Prop 218, which is our right to vote on new taxes or fees that affect our property. I haven't seen my ballot in the mail yet, and I'd like to know when those are going out. Your study also found that the district is currently in good financial health and annual revenues are sufficient to cover current operating expenditures, meet debt obligations, and contribute towards planned capital improvement costs. For example, the old pipes that need to be replaced. But you will fall far short of your plans for new development capital improvements if the developer doesn't pay his fair share or those buying into the system. In reality, you really don't need this new rate schedule because everyone is already paying their fair share, but they won't be if you incorporate these changes. This is an unnecessary hardship and huge increase for many older and small single-family households, and I protest this. Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Ms. Jester, there's one other individual with you, correct, who also wants to make a comment and lodge a protest?
Yes.
Yes. Daniel Jester, Oakley, California, obviously. First of all, the notifications that were sent out were not properly sent out because only one person I talked to out of 30 knew about this. Second, each person, regardless of where they live, creates the same amount of sewage. We all shower, we all do our laundry, we all shit, shower, and shave. Let's say it like it is. Shit, shower, and shave. And we all do our laundry. So it doesn't matter if you live in a tree house or live in a single family home, you create the same amount of sewage. It's very suspect, the timing of all this. It's crazy. And you say we can't meet face-to-face because the Chinese virus. Well, there's a lot of places we can meet face-to-face. The only way to do this fairly, and I know that you don't care, but the only way to do it fairly is to charge each person for what they flush or go down the drain. You can't expect single-family homes with 2 people to pay 4 times as much for an apartment with 2 people. It's insane. You've heard it over and over and over, and that's it. And I'm telling you what, Colleen's got a handle on it. Thank God she read the whole thing. So thank God for her. But anyway, everybody in Oakley needs to be aware of this, and they are not. So there you go. I'm done. Peace.
Thank you. Would you like me to try Scott one more time?
Yeah, give him maybe 15 seconds to see if he comes online.
Okay. Scott, if you are there, I'm sending an unmute command to your phone. Scott, if you're there, I'm sending an unmute command to your phone.
I think we can move on now.
Okay.
Agreed.
Robin, has everyone been called in the participant list? It looks like it, but
Yes, ma'am. All
okay.
participants have been called.
Okay, and then all public comments that were received, let me just refresh my email, but it looks like all public comments that were received during the meeting have been read into record as well.
All right. All right, so I can close the public hearing now, and staff will now count the protests received.
Well,
Yeah, I think we
prior
probably,
to that, before we close the public hearing, why don't we have Mr. Davison address some of the issues raised at the public hearing?
Right. I'm sorry.
And then after he's finished addressing that, then we can close the public hearing, count the protests, and then move on to board deliberation.
Okay, thank you.
okay, great. First of all, I appreciate all of the well thought out questions by the concerned community members, and I'll do my best to try to concisely answer them to the best of our ability. There was a question about the water consumption data for a single family residence versus a multifamily, and the study looked at the water consumption data during the wet season when landscape use would be minimal. And if there were any single family that had separate landscape meters, that was subtracted out. So that is a best practice for recognizing the best effort to understand exactly what amount of consumption is going into the sewer. So that's what was used there. And there was a question about condos. Condos are multifamily, not single family. There was a question about developer fees. And I want to be really clear that developers are collected upfront capacity fees to buy into the system. So existing ratepayers are not subsidizing new development. New development has to, at the time of construction, they have to fund their impacts on the sewers. Not only do they have to fund their impacts on the existing sewer by paying a system access and capacity fee, they also have to fund all of the infrastructure necessary to serve them until they tie into the existing infrastructure. So all of that money that the district collects from new development fees is put into restricted reserves that can only be used to fund those capital improvements that are necessary to accommodate expansion as a result of new development. So those funds from new development goes to fund the impacts of new development. Now, once a new development comes online, after the initial capacity and connection fees are paid, then they become existing users after that, and they would be imposed the same annual fee that existing users are imposed from that point forward. So I wanted to clarify that. As far as there was a question about single family residences and and confusion about the 9% in the first year. The first year, the district's rate structure is proposing to make this equity adjustment, which I'll talk a little bit more here in a minute, as well as a 9% increase on top of that. This rate study, there was a question about it being a 5-year rate structure and only showing increases over 3 years. This is a 5-year rate structure. If the board does approve this rate structure, those are the only increases that can be imposed over that 5-year period of time. So although the rate structure is proposing to collect the increases over the first 3 years, it is all that the district can collect under this rate structure, which is over a 5-year period before a new rate study would need to be conducted. The reason why the district is looking at a 3-year increase instead of stretching it out over 5 years is because of the fact that there's a time value associated with money, and if we can collect that in a shorter period of time, the ultimate rate increase imposed on ratepayers will be less than it would be if we collected smaller annual increases over an entire 5-year period. So therefore, we were able to get the adequate revenue without imposing a higher than necessary rate increase. So I wanted to clarify that. And I wanted to talk just real quickly about the current sewer fee of $658 is applied the same to every connected user in the district. So it does not take into consideration the individual consumption data or usage of any user, whether it's multifamily, single family. So the way that the practice that the district has had previously is that every user is treated exactly the same. That was what we looked at from a cost of service perspective. And although I think that the community brings up some excellent points about number of residents living in the house versus an apartment. And I can turn this over really quickly to our rates specialist. But it's important to determine the way that we determined this was we looked at the entire, we looked at the average water consumption for all single family residences. And then we said, okay, here's how much the average single family residence discharges into the sewer. Here's how much the average, we looked at all of the apartments, and here's how much the average apartment building multiplied by the number of units discharges into the sewer. And that helped us come up with a per user class average. And that's how the adjustment is being determined. And that is using best practice because we do not have access to water consumption data on a month-to-month basis. So what we did is we determined what was the most equitable methodology, and that was to look at each user class and determine within that user class what is their impact on the sewer on an average basis, and therefore everybody in that particular user class is assessed the same, which is in some ways consistent with the way that we've done it historically, but we've further broken it up by user class in order to ensure that there is equity. And so it was not a random decision. It was looking at water consumption data and looking at the actual impacts of each user class on the sewer system, and then determining what their cost of service was based on their cost of us providing sewer service, so that everybody was paying their fair equitable share rather than historically everybody paying the same regardless of type of user. What else did I have? I think that was sort of all of them. Oh, as far as a question about new taxes and voting, I don't know, maybe our legal counsel can make a couple of comments on that.
Yes, at least with respect to the process, and I'll make two comments to address sort of a series of comments that have been made, both related to the meeting and the noticing of the meeting, the whether or not this is a proper way to adopt a sewer connection fee, and the reason that the sewer charges are being divvied up based on user class, which has not been historically done. First, we are complying with the orders of the County of Contra Costa in order to ensure and protect the public safety. That is why we're conducting the meeting virtually. It's permitted by and required by both state law and the county orders. And so while I understand that this process is new and frustrating for many people, it is the safest way for us to ensure maximum participation. So that answers, I just want to point that out for those folks who are concerned about that. Again, I certainly understand everyone's frustration about this method. But it is the only method available to us right now that complies with both state and county law. The second issue relates to whether or not there has to be a vote for sewer fees. Proposition 218 requires a process for the adoption of sewer fees. That process is what we are doing here. And part of that process starts with a rate study that determines an equitable use or sort of an equitable allotment of the cost of providing the service. The best practice when you engage in that kind of equitable allotment is to divide properties into user classes. Because while individual folks may not think that they use more or less, as a user class, single family homes in the city of Oakley use more water than multifamily residents. That is in fact based on data that was collected from the Diablo Water District and then punched into an analysis done by professionals using best practices. That is also what is legally required of the district in order to ensure that the rates that we implement comply with Prop 218. The procedure permits ratepayers like you to participate in a meeting like this, make public comment, issue protests, and if there is a majority protest, so if a majority of the ratepayers in the district or the connections in the district protest the imposition of the rates, then that will not happen. For this district, there are 12,600 some odd connections, I believe, which means that a majority protest requires over 6,000 protests. That is the process that is designed by state law, and that is the process that we are utilizing today. So I hope that addresses sort of the legal questions that have been raised by the various commenters.
Okay, so if there were no further comments that came in, then I think that we can call the public hearing is now closed.
Just to be super, Cecilia, can you just do a quick refresh to make sure that there's no additional comments?
Give me one. I have to refresh in a few places. Bear with me.
No, take your time. We want to make sure that we've given the public as ample opportunity to provide their comments.
Okay. There have been no further comments on the website, and I have not received any additional comments via email, and I don't believe that anyone else has joined. Correct, Robin?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, so then President Morrow, you can take it from.
The public hearing is now closed and staff will now count the protest received.
Okay, give me just a second. Okay, so we've received approximately 32 unvalidated protests, which is fewer than the 6,207 required to constitute a majority vote as of April 2020. Since the number received is insufficient to constitute a majority protest, I am determining the absence of a majority protest without validating the protest received.
So now that the public hearing has concluded, the board needs to consider and deliberate on whether or not to adopt the proposed ordinance number 71 and to amend ordinance number 25, setting the sewer service charges specified therein for fiscal year 21 through fiscal year 25.
All right, and now the board may deliberate on the item. Director Lauritzen?
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of comments. If my arithmetic is correct, we had 19 people that commented via Zoom tonight. And I appreciate each and every one of their comments and each and every one of them that took the time to facilitate all of this and give us an idea of their circumstances. I have some questions and I have some comments. I want to circle back to Ms. Masadas, if I could, for a second. And she was concerned about the developer fees, and Chad certainly did comment about that. My understanding, the way that it works for us is that the developer, let's use East Cypress Road as example, the developer puts in all the infrastructure on that development, plugs into our big sewer line on East Cypress Road, and then they make a developer agreement with the district, and they're paid off over 10 years for all the improvements that they've made ahead of time so that sewer service would be delivered, but there are no costs.
If I could, no, go ahead.
There are no costs that are impacted by the current ratepayer. Isn't that correct, Chad?
Yeah, that is correct, with one difference than what you characterized. The development, so let's look at East Cypress, for example. There is a new tract of homes that gets built. That developer is required to fund all of the infrastructure necessary to serve that development. Now, let's say that they have to, that there's going to be another development that's going to be built at some point in the future that's going to connect to what they're putting in to serve their development. So perhaps they build something larger than what is just needed for their development. The district will reimburse only the difference between what they need and what they're putting in based on what we're asking them to put in. They front that, and so if they only need a 6-inch sewer line and we say we'd like you to put in an 8-inch because in a few years some other new development is going to ultimately tie into that line, then the difference between the 6-inch and the 8-inch, the district will reimburse for over time based on the number of new connections that come in. So there is nothing that is impacting existing users as it relates to new development. New development funds all of their impacts.
So to carry that a step further, so using the 6-inch to 8-inch, the money that we use to pay that offset is paid by developer fees and not by the ratepayers.
That is correct. The fees that we collect from new developments, from new developers, those go into what are restricted reserves. We cannot use that money to fix an existing sewer line. We can only use those funds that we receive from new developments to build a larger sewer line in the future that's required because of these new developments that are coming on. Or say, for example, in 20 years from now, we need to expand our water recycling facility because it's not large enough any longer to treat all of this new sewage that's been coming in from all the new development. What the district will have done is over the course of that 20-year period, we will have taken all of the fees associated with the new connections, and we would have put those funds in restricted reserves so that when it's time to expand the plant, that's the funds that is available, not that we have to go out to the existing ratepayers and ask for more money. I'm sorry, go ahead.
A couple other questions, if I can, Madam President. And one is a clarification. We're talking about putting all of our ratepayers into different categories, which we hadn't done before. Everybody paid the same thing, $6.58. So how long has the industry standard, or when did the industry standard change from everybody pays the same thing to go into categories like we're proposing tonight?
That's an excellent question, and I'd like to maybe our legal can weigh in, or perhaps our consultant can weigh in on the evolution of that.
Yeah, it's less about the industry standard changing as much as it is about the water usage changing. So the industry standard has evolved because the documentation of water usage, particularly based on larger homes being constructed, creates a reality where Oakley today, there is more water used by single family residential homes than Oakley 20 or 30 or 40, 50 years ago. So the industry standard is to make sure that the fees accurately reflect the water usage of the different classes. And it does that by taking all of those properties within that class together, as Mr. Davison explained. I'll let the consultant provide any additional insight, but both the industry standard and the legal requirement is that the fees be related to the cost of providing the service to that user class. And as those user classes have gotten further and further apart, it is necessary to create subclasses and to determine rates based on those classes, which we do by looking at water usage.
And maybe Taylor can help if there's any additional information that you could provide to shed on that.
Yeah, I think Leah explained it pretty well. It's required by Prop 218 that fees be proportional to the cost of service. Every so many years, at least every 5 years is what we recommend, looking at cost of service. So in this instance, we did a cost of service analysis for Ironhouse Sanitary District, and this is, the result of it is looking at water usage and strength of wastewater flow produced by each customer class. And the outcomes are as the rates are presented in the 218 notice and for consideration tonight.
I'll add two additional items, Director Lauritzen. The first is part of why this seems extreme is because of the length of time that has passed for us having done a fee study. And the second thing I wanted to also address that relates to the question that you raised about the developer impact fees is that for the rate study, projects are clearly delineated as capacity projects or maintenance and sort of really maintenance projects. Capacity projects that are designed to allow for the sewer to accommodate more users are not included when the rates are determined for sewer fees. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that these capacity projects that are purely related to adding capacity to the system for future development, they are not included. Those projects are not included as part of the cost for determining what the sewer fee should be.
I have just one last question. I'll let the rest of the board ask questions. There was a comment from one of the board, one of the members tonight in the public about can we delay some of the improvements that we're going to do? We have a 5-year rate study, 9%, 5%, 5%, 0%. We're going to spend $29 million on our 2 systems, the connection system and then the reuse facility. And so can those, I guess I have one question, one statement. Can the work be delayed a little bit? And if it delays, then we talk about it's going to cost more money in future dollars. But the other question I have for legal is, now that we know that the classes of users of the sewer system have changed, aren't we obligated by law to charge the appropriate rate? And is that case law, or how does that come about?
It's both the language of Proposition 218, which requires that fees be proportional, and then a large body of case law that has come out after that, construing what that means. Some of that case law deals with this precise issue, which is equity amongst user classes, and requires that user classes that don't look like each other should not be charged the same fee. So the study that we have done, the rate study that we have done, has developed a legally defensible fee that is the least amount possible in order to ensure that the district both complies with the law and that it is able to do the necessary projects in order to keep the system functioning properly.
Thank you. I have no other comments at this time.
Thank you, Director. Director Scheer?
I don't really have anything to add. All the comments from the public were great. We went over a lot of this in various board meetings. We did go back and forth on all of this, and I appreciate all the comments, and that's really all I have.
Thank you. Director Zirkle?
Pretty much ditto with everybody else, but I just had a couple questions. Exactly how many times did we notify the public about this hearing?
So we complied with the legally required formal notification of that, where we sent something out to all of the parcels that are receiving sewer service from us.
Okay.
And we also posted that same notice on our website. We utilized social media as well to get information out. We again provided a frequently asked questions sheet that we allowed or encouraged people to look at to help get some clarification, because we had a little bit more flexibility on that because it was not a legally required notice, so we could provide more information. And again, as I mentioned, we've received several phone calls from interested residents and businesses and ratepayers, and staff has been fantastic about being responsive. We have had some interactions with some local media to get information out to people. When we initially on the notice, at that time it was so early in the COVID-19 crisis that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to hold the public hearing in person or if we were going to have to do it remotely. And so we clarified that based on the requirements of the shelter-in-place order.
Yeah, so just to clarify, 2 things I want to add to what Mr. Davison said. First is that the notice that goes out to ratepayers is a physical piece of paper that is mailed out to the address that is on file for every connection that the district has. So that notice goes to everyone. That's a significant effort. It's an expensive process, and it takes a lot of work. It is in fact the legal requirement for making sure that everyone in the district gets notice of the proposed rate increase. And in addition to all of that, we have done, in order to maximize public knowledge about this, the various other efforts that Mr. Davison identified. With respect to the agenda and the notice, in all of our documentation, we have indicated that we would make a determination about whether to allow the meeting to go forward in person based on any renewed order from Contra Costa County that came out close to the date of the hearing. Contra Costa County put out a new order on June 3rd that continued to include restrictions that would have made a physical meeting difficult, if not impossible, for the district to utilize in order to comply with the requirements of that order. And so based on that June 3rd Contra Costa County order, the district made the determination to proceed virtually, and its agenda had all of the relevant information about how it would proceed virtually. That information was also available on the website. I don't know, and I'll ask Cecilia whether that information was put on social media or not. Certainly a link to the agenda is available in multiple places.
Okay, that kind of answers my question. There was, from what you just gave me, there was at least 6 to 12 different ways this was put out to the public. So I just wanted to make sure that we more than reached out to the public as much as possible. And as we all know right now, there are no meetings taking place that are not virtual. So city council, board of supervisors, water board, PG&E, you name it, they're all virtual. So there was really no choice. So I think that staff did an excellent job in getting this information out. And I think also, of course, staff did an excellent job of with the rate study and everything that's gone into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Morgan?
Thank you. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit and on this reallocation. This was something that I looked at in huge detail and went through with our consultants in a prior workshop. And I want to try to break it down just a little bit in the hope of providing some of the clarity and certainly some of the questions I myself had and I'm hearing the public ask. So problem number 1, sewage is not metered. We don't have a means of sticking a meter out there that tells us what's coming out of your toilet and what's coming out of your shower. And that's unfortunate and is a big difference from water going into your house or apartment. Water going into your dwelling is metered. So the water district knows individually how much each of you uses. Water coming out, which can come out through toilets and showers and sinks, that all goes in the sewer system, or down a storm drain, which goes somewhere else, that's not metered. So how do we fairly charge for sewer service? And that's the real issue in the crux, to me, at least in the crux of this, the reallocation portion of it. And in the past, we kind of went on the assumption that an apartment dweller and a homeowner should be charged the same, you know, under the assumption that that would be equitable. The industry, and as the consultants explained it to all of us, the standard in the industry is to try to use a little more sophistication and to use a model that looks at the data, the water data we can get from the water district and take an average. And in order to make it as fair and apples to apples as possible, the water data that's looked at is winter months only. So I did hear someone raise the issue about watering lawns, which of course goes to the storm drain. And that was a question I raised when this first came out at our first workshop. And the consultants look at winter months, really just 3 months, where because you're getting rain, people are not watering their lawns. You don't have the sort of activities that go down into the storm drains. So it's a closer approximation to the idea of water in is water out to the sewer. So water coming into your apartment or home is water out. And that's, in the absence of metering, gives us some data. When the consultants did this and then took an average water in during these winter months for apartments versus water in during these winter months for single family homes, the distinction was, and the average, huge. I mean, it was huge. And I was the first one that said, oh my God, how could that be? But amongst the things that lead to that, there's a number of factors. And apparently it is not uncommon across where these studies are looked at in other areas. They have found that apartment dwellers, and again, on the average, use less water than homes. It could be that our single family homes tend to house more people. They tend to be homes that are larger. Maybe their average number of people living there is a higher number. Homes will have 4 or 5 or 6 people. Apartments tend to have a smaller number. And again, you're just looking on the average. So a single individual, and I'm with you, I live in a reasonable sized home, but I live there with my husband. My kids are grown, they're off. We don't have 5 people in a home that could hold 5. We've got 2, and one of us goes to the office. So how much wastewater are we really producing? Not that much. We may be below the average. I'm sure we are. Nonetheless, we're not metered. So the only thing that can apply for equity is this average. So we pay what the average is going to be for homes. So having done this study and determined that apartment dwellers on the average are putting out much less wastewater than homeowners, it became almost critical for the district to not overcharge them. In a sense, what it says is that apartment dwellers being charged more than what that we now know the equity to be have to some extent been perhaps subsidizing homeowners in the past. And the reallocation is to make that more fair. Now, the problem is it's a shock. It's a shock to the system. It's a shock to the people who are suffering from this equity. I look at where we were, what we were charging in single family dwellings, and that was $658. The portion of the increase that is just associated with, again, what I'm calling reallocation, in other words, to bring the single family to what the average says they should be paying vis-a-vis the apartment dwellings, that portion of the increase is 119.37. And if you go to the frequently asked questions, there's a chart that shows that. I realize it's maybe not in a place that it would have been more accessible, but it is there. That represents 18% of the increase. And that's an increase, that's a reallocation. That's not more money to the district, because that amount that you're paying more is the amount that the apartments are paying less. The district isn't getting any more money from that. All that's doing is trying to adjust what appears to be equitable based on the data that we're getting from the water district in the winter months. Then the so-called 9% increase, which is above and beyond that, is an additional $69.96. That's the 9% that we're calling the increase, meaning that's increased funds to the district. Now, I know this is confusing. I know when you add 9% to 18%, that's a total 27% that you're paying as a single family resident more than last year. I get that because I'm paying it too. I don't know the best way to make it more clear. Maybe there's a better way. This stuff is hard and it's complex. I don't think anyone was trying to not be clear. And I went over and over and over and around with this with our poor consultants who I ran through the mill trying to do this. So where we are now, I don't think it's fair to ask apartment dwellers to pay what they were paying before, when that in a way is them paying more than their usage and subsidizing homeowners. I understand it's a shock to the system. I don't know any way around that. So even if we never did the 9% increase funds to the district, we'd still have to do this reallocation just to be fair. And that would raise the rates from 658 to 77737. I don't see any way around that and still be fair. As to the rest of it, the 9% increase, I mean, that's a smaller amount from 77737 to 84733. We did, and I asked the district at a prior meeting to look at delaying that 1 year, so that instead of 9% this year, followed by 5%, followed by 5%, we would have 0% this year, followed by 9, followed by 5, and 5. And the issue that came up, amongst other things, was because of the cost of money and the cost of services as we delay them out, and sort of the risks of things deteriorating further and then costing more to fix, would actually require more funds later. And that was not, didn't seem like a good trade-off. And that's how we got to where we are. I do understand that it's a hard pill to swallow. As to why we didn't do it earlier, we didn't have the rate study earlier, we didn't even have the capital plan. These things take time and they're incredibly complex. And like I say, we had workshops, a few of them in meetings earlier, where we grilled the consultants and went through this before at least I became satisfied that the study they did and that the methodology they're using really does show us the most fairest allocation in the absence of metering. We don't have metering. So we're working with averages, and I do understand that some individuals, and I'm with you, I'm one of them, are going to pay more than their use. But without metering, all we can do is averages. So that's my thoughts on, and I hope this explanation helped to clarify at least some of what's going on here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Director, and very good explanation, I think, of where we are with this, and I appreciate you bringing clarity. And I agree with everything that everybody said. We really made an effort as a board, and as and our staff made an effort, every effort, to put the word out that this was coming, because like Director Morgan said, we're all ratepayers and we feel it too. And we really, we knew that it was going to be a jump, but this is what we've got to do. So if there's no further comments, I don't see anybody waving their hand or anything. I think that we're at the completion of deliberation, and I would like to call for a motion. Does anybody want to make a motion on 4.8?
I'll make a motion. Is it 4B there? Where are we at there?
Or 4B, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we consider adopting the ordinance, or that we adopt the ordinance number 71, amending ordinance number 25, setting the sewer service charges specified therein for fiscal years 2020-21 through 2024-25.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Zirkle.
I saw you, Director Lawrence.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Morgan,
Aye.
Director Shear,
Aye.
Director Zirkle,
Aye.
Vice President Lauritsen,
Aye.
President Morrow.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, passed unanimously. We'll move on to item 5, the consent calendar. This is a motion item. Would any board members like to remove any items from the consent calendar? Hearing no one, can I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent calendar.
I'll
second.
second it.
Thank you. A roll call vote?
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. Director Morgan,
Approve.
Director Shear,
Aye.
Director Zirkle,
Aye.
Vice President Lauritsen,
Aye.
President Morrow.
Aye. Thank you. That passed unanimously. And we'll move on to item 6, business before the board. Item 6A is we're going to look at adopting resolution number 20-03 containing election order for ISD general election. General Counsel Costella, would you please present the item?
Yes. So as the board may be aware, there is a requirement in the election codes that at least 88 days prior to the date of the election, the district must pass a resolution to consolidate the election with the countywide elections. Basically, we don't need to conduct our own election. It will be conducted by the county. 3 spots on the board are coming up in 2020. And so this is the election this is the action that is necessary if the board wants to consolidate its election with the county.
All right. Are there any board member comments or questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Let's see. Do we have a motion?
Before we move on, Leah, I think part of the resolution was that they have to determine the candidate statement payment and in the resolution and the number of words for the statement, which is in there. Let me pull it up. I have it right here.
You're right. That was in there, I'm sure.
My apologies. Yeah, it's that the number of words must be either 200 or 400, and then estimate the cost. And so the resolution provides options, Cecilia, for whether 200 or 400 and what the cost will be.
Yes, and then I think that was based on the state guidelines, but Contra Costa County has their own guidelines. And so we discussed this, but I don't know, they have their guideline, they have a certain amount already determined for our district. And it's
the amount, right? That's 250.
That I think it's I have to give me 1 second. Let me just pull up my folder.
I also thought there was a question about whether the district would pay for the candidate statement or whether the candidate would be required to pay for their own candidate statement. So I think that the district should be very clear on their position on that.
And then to go with that, what we discussed was there's state guidelines that allows Leah, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, please.
There's state guidelines that determine that the board can decide, but Contra Costa County also has their own guidelines, and they've determined, just for reference to the board, they've determined that the candidate should pay for the statement, and it's 250 words. And the cost to Ironhouse Sanitary District or the candidate would be $549.80. And you could double it, but it would be double the fee as well. So just for reference, when you guys make your decision.
So, and the resolution is, the draft resolution would include, and I would recommend that we adopt the county recommendations on this, so that we allow for 250 word statements, that the cost be borne by the person seeking the spot, and that the amount be the 550 some odd. So that would be my recommendation. Certainly that is an area that the board can discuss. If they would like to deviate from any of those recommendations, we can address that in the final resolution that gets adopted.
Are there any comments Director Zirkle? No? Director Zirkle?
I was quick on the unmute button, sorry. I'm perfectly fine. We've always used the county recommendations in the past. So I don't see any reason to change. So that's my, thank you.
Anyone else? Director Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, if I'm not mistaken, the county also had 250 words. I can't see expanding it to 500. 250 is pretty standard across the board. And it's also the case that not only in the past for us, but most of the other districts require the candidates to pay for their candidate statements, and I think that's appropriate.
Thank you. Director Scheer, anything? Thank you. Director Luritzen.
No comment. It's already been stated.
All right. Thank you. And I agree. Do we have a motion?
For purposes of clarity, if someone does choose to make a motion, I would recommend that we adopt the resolution, that the motion be to adopt the resolution with the county recommendations for word limit, responsible party for payment and amount of payment. And then Cecilia can put those into the resolution that ultimately gets signed.
Anybody like to try that?
I'll make a motion.
I got it.
A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
But don't I need to read it first or no?
Cecilia has it down.
Okay.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Okay, and then are we ready for the roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. Director Morgan?
Aye.
Director Scheer?
Aye.
Director Zirkle?
Aye.
Vice President Luritzen?
Aye.
President Morrow?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, that was unanimous. And we'll move to item 6B. Adopt resolution number 20-04, moving the regularly scheduled board meeting from the first Tuesday of the month to the third Tuesday of the month, revising the district bylaws regarding meeting times and committee assignments, and establishing a policy for standing committees. This is an action item, and General Counsel will present.
Yeah, so this motion really has three parts that sort of worthy of discussion. Well, the first and I think the simplest is to change, as you are all aware, we voted, I believe, 2 or 3 meetings ago to eliminate the second planning and programs meeting and to replace it with 2 additional committees. So staff determined that if we were to do that, it would be sort of a better, these meetings would be more effective if they were later in the month, as it would allow for staff to prepare more robust staff reports, to have complete reporting on all of our basically all of our compliance with various regulations, et cetera. So the first item here is to move the regularly scheduled meeting from the first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. to the third Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. So that's the first component of the resolution. The second is to revise the bylaws to reflect that, because the bylaws currently establish the meeting to be on the first Tuesday of the month. The third component of this, and probably to the extent that there is discussion, this may be the item for you all to discuss, is to adopt a committee policy that kind of governs the way that our committees function. Currently, based on action already taken, there are now 4 committees: a finance committee, a personnel and human resources committee, a Jersey Island committee, and a public outreach committee. This committee policy does a number of things. It establishes that the committees are comprised of no more than 2 directors, that they're charged with discussing and making recommendations to the board pertaining to issues relevant to that committee, that the board president will recommend the members for membership to the committee, and then that will be voted on by the entirety of the board, that the appointments will be reviewed annually, and that the committees will meet on an as-needed basis, that they will determine for themselves how frequently they need to meet based on consultation with staff, the general manager and his designee, to just determine if there are items that should go to one of the relevant committees prior to going to the board meeting that, if this goes forward, will be moved to the third Tuesday of the month. So those that we, in lieu of presenting them as separate items, we presented them all as one item and one resolution to adopt all 3 of those pieces of sort of administrative business to make the functioning of the board more streamlined and efficient.
Thank you. Is there any board comments or questions, Director Morgan?
No, thank you.
Director Scheer?
Nope. Good.
Director Luritzen?
No comments.
Director Zirkle?
Just for the record, I still, I'm not in favor of disbanding having 2 board meetings a month. Because I prefer that even if they're short, that we stay well connected. And I think an entire month is kind of too long to go without a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so can I get a motion?
How do I frame the motion?
I would just, the motion to adopt resolution 2004.
Okay,
as listed in the staff report. It's a long title, so I think we
Yes.
should just do it by number. That should be sufficient.
I'll move to adopt resolution 20-04 as set forth in the agenda. Is that good?
Perfect.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Do we have a second? Director
Second.
Luritzen? Thank you. All right. We'll have a roll call vote on that.
Okay, Director Morgan?
Approve.
Okay. Director Scheer?
Aye.
Director Zirkle?
Nay.
Okay. Vice President Luritzen?
Aye.
President Morrow?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we can move on to item 7, informational items from staff. General Manager Davidson.
Yes, I'm sorry. Hold on one second here. So tonight's meeting, in addition to everything we've done so far, is also the Jersey Island operating and informational updates. So unfortunately, Mr. Del Porto isn't able to make it, but we do have the next best thing, which is Mr. McGormley. And so maybe, Mike, if you could just give a quick update to the board on activities out on Jersey.
Sure, Chad. Hello, everybody. This is our busy time of year out there. We just finished branding our spring herds, and yesterday we started weaning our fall calves, and we're in full production in the hay. So we're, right in the middle of watering some fields, cutting some fields, and baling some fields, and planting some of the fields out there. And we're also getting the biosolids. We've got, I think Thursday will be our last day going on to field 34. And right now we've got approximately 564 ton on field 34. And so we can put 2 more loads on there, and then we'll move on to field 15. Let's see, we've actually finally started to get dirt import for the levee. It's been a while since the bridge has been closed, and the word finally got out that we were back open, and we've approved a couple jobs, and they're bringing material in, which will help for filling in the ditch there for the pump project. We're going to have the meeting, the pre-construction meeting on Thursday for the pump project, and so hopefully that gets started fairly quick so we can get that done before the summer's over. Regular levee maintenance, keeping the weeds down, monitoring the squirrels, trying to keep the squirrels down. They're pretty bad this year. That's just, we completed the forklift training for all the staff out there on the island. So that was with the big forklift and the hay squeeze. That's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions.
I do, Mike. I don't know if you can answer it or not, but you said 564 tons. What's the total we can put on any given, or on that?
On that particular field, it's 644. Our limit is 23 ton per acre, and that's 28 acre field. So we'll be with these next two loads. The loads are coming in around 22 ton a piece. And so we'll just be right at the limit. So there's no sense in waiting next week to put another load on that field. So because we won't be able to put a full load on that field. So we'll just move on to the next field.
And so that next field is settled since last year. There's nothing on it. Just that'll be brand new, and you'll be able to start with another 644.
It's been 2 years since we've done any of the biosolids because of the bridge being closed. So yeah, the next field, it was the last time we had any biosolids on it was 2 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Your report. Any other directors have a question? No. Is there another staff report? Chad, are you still going?
I believe that was all that we had for the staff.
For staff. All right. Next is 7A, receive an update on Jersey Island operation, or is that all in there?
That's all what we just
did. All right, let's move on. Questions? Nobody had questions. Board member advisory reports, item 8. Are there any board member comments or questions about the board reports? No one. Director Morgan? I can't see you if you're waving or not, so.
No, I mean, I can tell you I attended the Oakley City Council meeting, fairly standard set of things that they articulated well in their little outreach report. The mayor did make some comments regarding, fairness and equality in this time and the city's support of fairness and non-discrimination and so forth. Other than that, I think their outreach report pretty much captured what they accomplished in that meeting.
Thank you. Any other board members who want to wave? Director Lauritsen, do you have anything? Okay. All right, general manager announcements.
I have none.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Are there any board member questions for the general manager? No? All righty, then let's move on to future agenda items for consideration. Anyone? All right, I don't see any. Oh, Director Zirkle?
Sorry, had to find my unmute button again. What about the committees? Is that something the president will be working out, or is that something staff works on? Mm-hmm. Be the president? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
All right. And I would like for us to discuss on a future agenda, as far as future agenda items go, I would like for us to discuss, I'm not sure if it's possible, but I would like for us to look at some models for super low income and possibly senior and disabled rate adjustments. And I don't know if it's possible for us to do that or if it's something that we can even legally do, but I would like to, listening to our ratepayers talk tonight, and we do care about our ratepayers. We are ratepayers, and I would just like to have a little further discussion about that, if that's possible.
I will look into that with General Manager Davison. There are potentially options, but it is legally tricky, but we can look into that and report back to the board.
Thank you. All right, so if there's anything else.
I just have one final thing.
All right.
I just want to, as general manager, I want to thank the board and thank the community for the time and effort that the community members put into coming and participating in this process. This has been challenging, and I just very, very much appreciate the community's involvement. And the board members, I thank you for your support of staff on an ongoing basis, and just facing a really difficult situation and decision tonight. And I applaud the board for your thought and consideration that went into it.
Yeah, I'd like to also thank everyone, Chad, your staff, legal, the consultants that have helped us tonight in the Zoom meeting. Thank you very much for making that go smoothly. And the ratepayers. I mean, you know, thank you for coming. And I encourage you to continue to come to our meetings and stay interested, especially, you know, at this rate, then, you know, it's imperative that you stay educated on these things. So thank you for coming. And I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm going to stop the recording now.